Mark Pouliot to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Father God, we thank you for the opportunity to serve this community this day. We ask for your wisdom, your guidance, clarity of thought, focus, and the strength to do your will. May our actions be just and honorable in your sight, and help us to reflect your heart in service to our town. In the precious name of Jesus and for the sake of his reputation, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Next item is the reading of the minutes for March 19th. Is there a motion for approval as written?
So moved.
In a second?
Second.
I have a change.
Okay.
On the first page, middle of the page, reading of the minutes, it says under executive session to change 5 to 2 to 3 to 5.
Well, we're on the other one right now, the March 19th.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I am sorry. I'm sorry. I have no problems with that.
Okay.
I thought, really?
So all in favor then of the March 19th being approved as written, do so with show of hand. Next is the March 20th. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right, the change is change from 5 to 2 to 3 to 2.
Yeah. You got that, Bob?
Got it.
Any others? Seeing none, all in favor of the minutes being approved as amended, do so with show of hand. And next is the administrative briefing. Mr. Brown, anything you need to add?
No, sir.
Any questions of Mr. Brown?
Yeah, I got a question on this 911 thing I was asking for. Actually, item E on your administrative briefing.
Yes, sir.
You got down the cost for a cell number is unknown. However, estimates to provide a cell phone is between $85,000 and $120,000
Annually, we talked, that's,
for a cell phone.
no, that's for the number. You want a dedicated number that would come to the Irmo Police Department. We picked 299 was the number you picked.
Whatever.
That's what it would cost, roughly. But I mean, because you have to deal and have a contract with all the providers, that's what is unknown at this time. They would all have to be able to tie in. If you got a AT&T phone, you'd be able to still get that number. A Verizon phone, a Sprint phone. That's where all the contractual stuff comes in, and we still don't have a bottom line number. I mean, Courtney's been working on it, trying to get a definitive answer, and we just don't have one yet.
Okay, we'll talk about it later on, but I was just clarifying that $85,000 for a cell phone.
That's the estimate, yes, sir.
Okay.
Any other questions of Mr. Brown on the briefing? Seeing none, next is the police briefing, and you're doing that? Okay.
Yes, sir. So I was asked to explain to the council what happens when you call the police department during business hours and after business hours. We do utilize a star-to-star service, which is a voice-over IP system that has automatic attendance. If a human actually doesn't answer the phone, then we've got some automatic attendance set up. So it's two different parameters. One is when we're open. So when we're open, we set those times as 8:30 in the morning to 5 p.m. The phone will ring in the front office. If a live person doesn't pick up, it'll then move to the patrol office. If a live person doesn't pick up there, then it'll move to the automatic attendant. And when that automatic attendant or the computer picks up, it gives them a voice recording that tells them if you need immediate assistance, call 911. If it's an emergency, if you want to speak to the dispatch center, you press 2. get into our phone directory, you hit pound and you can go and look somebody up. That's what happens during the day, Monday through Friday, 8:30 to 5.
How much does that cost?
I'm not sure what, that's part of the.
That's part of our phone system. We have monthly charges for our phones are about, give me a second, 15, 4, 3, about $4,500 is what we pay for the phones, for all the phones.
Yeah, so that, to have that feature is part of the existing system now?
Yes, sir, that's not
Okay.
additional.
Okay.
And to follow up, when we are closed, when you dial the 781-8088 number, the automatic attendant automatically picks up, and they're sent to the prompt that if this is an emergency, dial 911. If you'd like to speak to the dispatch center, press 2, and then you can get into the voicemail system or a general voicemail delivery.
You can leave a message for somebody or,
A message for someone specific or in the general mailbox.
okay. Any questions?
How are you doing on the notification of people for the parking orders?
The parking ordinance, we're continuing to make notification, yes.
You know what the numbers are like?
I did not pull numbers today. I didn't have those.
That's fine.
I have a question.
Sure.
Captain, if a car is, the tire is on, 2 tires are on the curb, and the rest is in the road, is that against the law?
So it depends on if we're talking about parking in the street or parking on your grass.
Well, they might have been, right over the curb. It was a police car, but it wasn't ours. It was another town's. And we saw it today, and I thought, is that ticket worthy or not? Because we thought it might be.
I would say if it's temporarily parking in the front on the grass, then that falls into the temporary aspect of it. As far as it being parked in the roadway, as long as it's not a safety hazard, we wouldn't address it.
Okay.
So is it parking in the grass? Is that illegal?
Again, it depends on if it's temporary or not.
Let's say he always parks there every day, same spot.
Then that's permanent.
Right, so that's illegal.
Front of the yard, then yes, that'd be the violation, is parking in the front yard.
So the answer to your question, if two tires on the grass, 2 tires on the street, they're getting an abatement notice.
It was a police car, and he was washing it, and I didn't want, it wasn't Irmo. I didn't want
Washing.
to dissuade him from beautifying the area by washing it, because it was falling all over it, so,
Now you got water runoff going into our sewer system.
well, he just splashed around.
Well, again, I think to answer your question, we have to determine if it's a temporary
Yeah.
use of the space or a permanent use of the space.
Gotcha, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Any other questions? Thank you. Next is amendments to the agenda. Any amendments to the agenda? Next is consideration of communications. Any communications?
Yes. Ms. Jack Buck, who is a little under the weather for good reason, asked me to, ask Barry and I both to read this. No, it's not, I'm sorry. What am I gonna attach it to? I do want y'all to hear every word, so, okay, good, okay. This is a volunteer request for the Great American Cleanup through Keep the Midlands Beautiful. And it's Good Clean Fun Saturday, April 21st, when they're gonna attempt to do all of Irmo Drive, or as much as possible from Publix back toward town. They're looking for as many volunteers as possible, meet in the Publix parking lot, the Irmo Drive side, all the volunteers, and you'll get bags, vests, gloves, grabbers, everything. They want to do the entire length, but they'll do as much as possible, and they're going to give you a bottle of water, a coffee mug, and a T-shirt for participating. I mean, this is, big time here. 8:30, April 21st.
I think it's cost coffee mug or.
It is, but if only a few show up, I think they'll get both. Anyway, she does, and the Rotary Club usually has a few participants there too, which is very good, but as many as possible. She needs a great deal of people, a lot of people, to go from Publix all the way to Lake Murray Boulevard. I mean, that's a span,
Huge.
mile or two. Anyway, April 21st, 8:30. Y'all all got that?
I didn't, but I'll put it out in the listserv.
Thank you.
Any other communications?
Yeah, I got a letter I get emails and stuff from people all the time. And if you're not on that Citizens for Irmo Facebook page, it might be a good page for y'all to at least monitor, because a lot of good comments come back and forth through that page. But I got one particular that I wanted to read to council, and this one is directed to me, and it's from a lady named Diane Danino. She's apparently a Irmo resident. She says, Barry, I believe that the people of the town have spoken loud and clear about how we feel regarding the parking ordinance. You care, but the mayor does not. In my opinion, worrying about property values over people shows what is important to some people. I am in a non-HOA for a reason. I do not want someone dictating to me about the home that I'm paying for. You do not like my yard? Don't look. But what my house looks like is not the only thing that affects property values. Declining in school ratings, crimes, businesses, loss, job opportunities, and many other things play into value. Frankly, I'm not concerned what is wrong with my neighbor's house, as I have my own house to worry about. No one knows everyone's home's situation. And I thought that was pretty poignant, and I wanted to share that with council. We all can think about that as we go about taking care of town's business tonight.
Any other communications? Next is presentation by citizens for items on the agenda. Anyone who would like to address council on any item on the agenda, all we ask is you give us your name and address for the record and what agenda item.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, George Glassmeyer, 100 Denbeck Road. I'd like to address items 10, C, D, and E on the agenda in that order. 10C, approval of the new police lieutenant position. I'm opposed to this, and here's why, at least at this time. It's my understanding, the latest information I have from the chief, is that there are 3 vacancies for patrolmen in the police department. Now, I understand that 2 of those may be filled, or at least there's 2 people in the pipeline to fill 2 of those 3 positions, one of which is not even a certified officer and won't even start the academy until August, and he won't graduate until November, and he probably wouldn't complete field training until next year, and then and only then would he be of any real value to the department. And please keep in mind that that assumes that we'll have no other attrition. To promote someone, and presumably if this position were to be created, hopefully it would be a promotion from within, lest you create a morale problem in the department. And if you promote it from within, what you've done then is exacerbate the problem of patrol vacancies, because you've created yet a 4th patrol vacancy. It's my understanding that this position has been requested by the police department to assist them with administrative duties, and while I'm sensitive to that, I'm more concerned about keeping uniformed police officers on the street than I am with getting paperwork done in police headquarters. Moreover, it's my understanding that both the captain and chief are FLSA exempt employees, which means they're not eligible for overtime, so they may just have to, pardon the expression, suck it up and work a little harder to get that administrative work done to help us keep uniformed officers on the street. Now, once we have the full complement of uniformed officers on the street protecting the town, I would have no objection to this lieutenant's position if it's still needed. But right now, I think it's the wrong decision, and you make a bad situation worse. The next thing I want to talk about is the proposal to create a communications director position. Frankly, I think the staff at Town Hall's been doing this job just fine up until now, and it's going to be a waste of money to create a new position and hire a full-time person just for this. And that's all I want to say about that. Finally, item E, the proposal to create this 299 number. I think that's ill-advised, a waste of money. It'll cause confusion, and it'll create a liability problem for the town. Initially, I would like to say I think it's noteworthy that Mr. Walker's proposing this, especially given the fact that he couldn't be bothered to attend the town hall session that provided information to citizens about 911, where the experts and the professionals from the Lexington County Communications Center came and were kind enough to answer the residents' questions about this and provide information. Now, all of a sudden, Mr. Walker's an expert on, I think he's presented a solution that's in search of a problem. To create this, to do this, what I think you're going to do is you're going to have citizens that will be confused now. Oh, if I have an emergency, if somebody's breaking into my house at 3 a.m., do I call 299? Do I call 911 or something in between? And if you have 299 and they call an emergency, that person, whoever answers it, unless he's a police officer, is going to have to forward the call to Lexington Central to have it received and dispatched anyway, which is a loss of time. You're going to have somebody man this 24 hours. You're going to have probably people calling at 3 o'clock in the morning to say, my garbage wasn't picked up today. And that issue can't be addressed until town hall's open at 8:30 the next morning anyway. And God forbid we have this and somebody calls 299 with a real bona fide problem, and whoever's on payroll to answer it doesn't do it, then what have you just created? A liability. Contrary to what some citizens, from what I understand, I don't go on the Irmo Facebook page that Mr. Walker referenced a moment ago, the Citizens for Irmo, but it's my understanding that there's some citizens in this town that don't understand that we do have 24/7, 365 police coverage and dispatch service, and we've had that for over 30 years, over the 30 years that I've lived in this town. Okay? Now, apparently one or more council members aren't too eager to correct these people on this Facebook page when they perpetuate these misnomers. And for the benefit of those folks that are watching on Channel 2, let me assure them that we do indeed now and have enjoyed 24/7, 365 police coverage and dispatch service. And if they have an emergency, they need to dial 911, and they'll get connected with the live on-duty dispatcher in Lexington who can dispatch our live on-duty police officers on the street right now to your emergency. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hello, Matthew Hall, 106 St. Albans Court. Let's do the first one. 9B, I do believe this one is about the unsanitary and unsightly. The way it reads is grammatically incorrect. The quotations need to be around appliances. Otherwise, you need to put following trash, appliances, construction into the actual ordinance, and that's not what you're wanting to do. Additionally, with what the ordinance already says, if you see the appliances from even another residential lot, it's breaking the ordinance. So what you're telling me is I cannot put an outdoor kitchen around my pool for barbecues in the summertime if I so wish, because everyone around me can see into my backyard and they would be able to see appliances. So maybe inoperable appliances would be a better term, something like that. I'm not sure. But this also seems to be trying to fix a problem we're having with one citizen, which is odd to me. The next one would be 10B. It references the International Property Maintenance Code, but that's not the codes we go by in the town of Irmo. We have adopted the Standard Plumbing Code, which is published by the Southern Building Code Congress International. So should we not be referencing that one as well? And would this not be more appropriate in a zoning area as opposed to an ordinance? Zoning saying you have to have this in your house if it's going to be lived in. Has to be done like this. That's what makes more sense to me. And the last one is 9A. The license fee, I have talked to a few property managers that are actively leasing properties. They say the fee is excessive. It is not in line with what is in our area, which ranges typically from free as long as the property management company has a license to operate in that municipality to about $50. It also needs a better word structure. I know it came up at the last time, but the best way to lead to it is, here's the fee. If you don't do it on time, here's your delinquency notice. You don't start out with, here's what you're going to pay if you're late, but we'll give you a discount. Start with what you pay, your normal, and then go to your penalty. Section 11.2, standards for residential rental units. Parking spaces, what you're doing is limiting the number of cars to a house. So they can't have people over either. No street parking because it says 2 cars per property with a single driveway. So if they've got 2 cars and they want to have a guest over, they can't even do that, the way this is written. And then who's going to monitor that? Either are we going to give parking passes out so we know who's supposed to be where, when, stuff like that. Grass height change, number 10. Grass height changed 12 inches to 8. It's already 8, so I don't know why we're changing it from 12 to 8 back to 8 or whatnot. And this one just makes no sense. Our area does not grow grass in some places. You've got bad soil, you've got tree coverage that soaks up water, that has shade, that doesn't allow sunlight in, or you might just have runoff. If you keep hitting the property owners with fines and fees for not having grass, they're having to go out there and reseed, it gets washed away, it dies, you got to replace it because it says dead grass must be replaced. They're going to end up selling. If they all sell at one time, that's going to drop the property values in the entire town, which I think is what you're wanting to avoid. So something else needs to be done with that one. I don't have any recommendations because it's grass and our area doesn't grow grass in some spots, plain and simple. Number 16, siding is redundant. It already states, shall not be allowed to rot, peel, or decay. So it's already said you can't allow to peel, so why are we adding must be properly painted with no peeling paint? It's already saying you can't allow it to peel, so obviously it's properly painted. That's redundancy, doesn't be needed. Boat and RVs. This one, I think, my opinion, would be better if you just kept it the way it is currently. Take the second sentence that's written on here, that however these vehicles can be parked on a concrete driveway for no more than 3 days, blah, 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 blah. Put that at the end of the current ordinance. Because the current ordinance says it can't be in the front or side yard. So where is it going to be? In the backyard, which this ordinance allows as well.
Say that again.
The current ordinance says that it can't be in the front or side yard, or even parked in front of the house on the street if it's an RV. So keep what we've got because it makes sense, and take the second sentence of this one. However, these vehicles may be parked on a concrete driveway for not more than 3 days for cleaning, washing, loading, unloading, or repairing. Recreational vehicles may not park in the street for more than 36 hours, subject to safety conditions. Just tack that to the end of it, because it's the gist of it. We've got something good. Why are we throwing it away for basically the same thing? Just tack the second part on to the end of the current one. 20, occupancy. This one is quite arbitrary, again, my opinion. It also seems like we should be going by the building codes that have been adopted by the town, which are ordinance 8.37, which they are to be used in the use, maintenance, and occupancy of a dwelling. And they state, living space must be provided for the first person of 150 square feet, 100 square feet for each additional person. For a room that is for sleeping, you must have 70 square feet for the first person and 50 additional square feet for each extra person. So your typical 170 square foot bedroom can technically, by what's already in our codes, sleep 3 people. Most of our bedrooms are houses are 3 bedrooms. So you're gonna have 3, 6, 8 at the most if you follow the ordinance, which is already in there, so why are we being redundant and adding something else to it? 21, utilities. This goes too far. What this basically says is if the water, sewer, or electrical services are disconnected, that it is unrentable and unlivable. That goes too far because it puts it on to the property owner to make sure that all of those services are connected all the time. So if the renter gets behind on the power bill, can't make that payment, and their power gets cut off, technically, by this, the home is unrentable and unlivable. I know that's not what we're trying to do, but that's what's being done. The ability to be connected would be better right there for that. And then sewer, I think, again, scratch the entire part of that out and put it into the zoning ordinance saying that each property has to have that. That way it applies unilaterally to properties, whether it be commercial, rental, or primary residence, either way. Also, while looking through this, number 19 in that same area would need to be deleted or modified because it states cars can only be parked on paved areas, yet in number 9, you're giving them more freedom with a contained gravel surface that's not a paved area, and that's for that. But in closing, I would like to ask you to put off the 3rd reading for this ordinance till either April the 17th, which is the next one, or the one after the next one. No, that might be the next one. Sorry, to May the 5th, or the one after that, which is 2nd or 3rd reading, council meetings after this, and actively seek input from your property management companies that are here that do business in the town of Irmo. Make sure that passing this is not going to cause an issue with property sell-off immediately, that they're willing to do it. I understand it is a business, but at the same time, you can't make them all mad, so they throw their hands up, put everything on the market, and flood it, because then your property values are going to plummet.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Excuse me, Mr. Hall, you said number 21. We should put that in the zoning, under zoning? or
Just
something?
for the sewer portion of it.
Yeah,
I know we're having issues with that, and it needs to be corrected. I'm not disagreeing with that.
right.
But put it more for a zoning issue. That way, it's not in the codes. Currently, the plumbing code is for when it's built. So if it was built in the 1970s and you didn't have to have one, you're technically up to code for the date that it was built. But if you put it somewhere else in a zoning, saying you have to have whatever Mr. Waits said on his is good. It needs to reference the correct manual that the town has adopted. But throw that into a zoning as opposed to a regular ordinance, because that would make sense to me.
And you're saying that's under zoning, that should be a part of the, just that section about the,
Just about the sewer.
right, that section should be under zoning and apply to both commercial and residential properties. As a zoning amendment, you're saying?
A zoning amendment, or just, I didn't look at the zoning, so I don't know.
No, I understand, I'm
It
just
might be
trying-
there, but just put it in there as a zoning ordinance as opposed to a regular
Right,
everything else ordinance.
okay. We'll talk about that, thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I had one more communication. I know it's out of order, but it'd only take a sec. A couple of people asked me to go to Cornerstone today and look at the project. Are they done?
No,
Okay, good. Okay,
not yet.
it looks
They've got a
terrible.
punch list, they're still working on it.
Okay. Because two of the people out there were complaining about how awful it looked, and I went to look, and
I'm not involved with that, that's Richland County inspectors, they're the ones.
I
that get the
understand.
punch list, and once they're happy and they take it, I mean, it's out of our hands, we're trying to get them to take it.
I understand. But it might get a little better, like,
I can't answer that. I mean, I just know that we've still got the final inspection to do when the punch list is complete.
yeah, it's not the pond part, it's the lot that they went in on.
I know where they drive in.
Yeah.
Into the pond area. Yeah, they were supposed to be grading that, from what I understand. They were supposed to grade that, smooth it out, throw some grass
Okay,
down.
that would help. Thank you.
Any other presentation by citizens? Seeing none. Next is unfinished business, second reading of ordinance 1804. This is the rental property registration. Is there a motion for second reading?
I make a motion.
Is there a second? I will second. And I'll let you go, yeah.
There's a lot of work still to be done on this ordinance, if we're going to pass anything. You know, a lot of people believe that we should not have two different versions, one for residential and one for rental. And I mean, there's two sides. One would certainly make it easier for code enforcement to do their thing. There's one set of rules, and I know Councilman Waits has always said this. On the other hand, many of the problems that we've had with complaints have been concerning rental properties. Now, I believe that we have a strict rental ordinance now. I'm just not sure that we're truly enforcing it. And if we're not enforcing the current, making changes to this, it's fruitless.
Did it? As far as having one for all, I don't think that will work, because there's a lot of stuff that some of us would not vote for on a regular residential home owner. There's some stuff that I would allow and agree that a resident can do, but a landlord can't do. It's not the rental individual, it's the landlord, and most of this stuff is applicable to the landlord to make sure they're doing this stuff, not necessarily that the tenant, but the landlord is responsible. Just like if an apartment complex is built, we require a lot of stuff to be built into that thing. Adequate parking and different things to that matter. And it's up to them to make sure it applies. And that's partly where this parking space and the siding and boats and RVs, some of the apartment complexes don't allow you to park boats and RVs at a camping. They have a particular place on site where you can park all that. They charge you for it. Some of them may have it for free, but most of them do charge. And it's somewhere at the back of the complex. Some of them don't, because they're just not that big, and they don't allow it at all. You can park them at a storage place, but you can't park unless you're loading and unloading and washing and cleaning and repairing and all that kind of stuff. Some of the homes that's having the parking in the yard problem is coming because they have the camper or the boat or whatever in the driveway. That's why they can't get the cars there. And I think that's a responsibility that we can make the landlord provide adequate parking. If he wants to rent the house out, provide adequate parking. Simple as that. It's not a difficult thing. If he's going to rent it to somebody with 4 cars, put 4. If he doesn't want to do 4, he just needs to make sure he rents it to somebody with what parking he's got. One of the things I wanted to address on some of this stuff, and we can defer it and amend it, but somebody's got to. Somebody needs to say, okay, I want to change it, I want to change this, I want to word this, I want to better this, whatever. It's the old, somebody expects anybody to do it, and anybody expects everybody to do it, and everybody expects, and nobody does it. So we get back to that. So we either got to do it or pass it or drop it. But one of the things that I'll say on the license fee, right now it's 50. After this change, if it's changed, it would be 100 for the first dwelling and still 50 for each dwelling after that. So it's really only going up $50. The way it's worded, in my mind, is better than doing a penalty. If you tell somebody your fee is $200, but if you come get it before the 15th, it's 100, they're going to come get it before the 15th. If you tell them it's 100, but if you get it after the 15th, it's 200, they're going to come in here on the 16th and argue with Bob and everybody else about their mama was sick, their car broke down, everything else in the world. Then we have no choice but to write them a ticket and go to court and handle it that way. So it's really a more difficult way of doing it. It's a whole lot simpler to just say it's $200, but if you come get it by a certain day. I think one thing we need to do to it too, somebody had brought that up, is that it doesn't state right now if somebody renews, which I was going to add a sentence to that that basically says in the second sentence, if the license is applied for and granted before leasing, renting of dwelling, or if the annual license is renewed by April 15th of each year, then a 50% reduction is applied. So that all those that get renewed every year, as long as they renew it by the 15th, then it's still the $100 for the first one, $50 for each one after that. And if they don't, then it's $200. If they come in on July the whatever, and they just got the house remodeled or fixed or repaired, and then they want to rent it, then fine, it's still the $100 for the first one, 50 after. If they rent it, and then we catch them, however, which is not real likable that we would, unless we were doing some kind of police raid or something on the home and found out it was a rental home, and then we checked and then they don't, or we was doing code enforcement. Then the $200 would apply for that first one. And then next year when they renew it, it'd be back to the 100. Because I have had some people that I know that do own homes in the area, and they've told me, if it's $50 now, it's $50 next year, it's $50 next week, who cares? I'm not going to get it. It's just no incentive to. But I think that can be worked out by adding the thing about the renewal. As far as the parking spaces, yeah, and we started out with saying it had to be paved, concrete or asphalt, and then we added the concrete gravel. We could get rid of the pave and just say driveway must be concrete, asphalt, or contain gravel surface, and clear that up a little bit. The grass height thing, that's my mistake. I don't know exactly, other than I know I started with 12-12, and I'll just take responsibility for that because I asked Bob to give me a copy of that ordinance, and I think that's the one he gave me, and that's the one I worked with. And
But what is it? It's 8
Well,
or 10?
It's 8.
it's 8,
8, okay.
actually. We changed it in 11-14, October, November of 14, from 8, or actually we went from 12 to 6 at the first reading, and then at second reading we amended it to 8, and then second and third reading we kept it at 8. And it was a unanimous, well, no, it wasn't. I think Councilman Hoots voted against it. Everybody else voted for it. So it's actually 8 on the last version, but I think I had the 12-12 or something that I was working off of. So we could get rid of that, change 12 to 8, and then just put add the rest of it, all lawns, blah, blah, blah. I disagree about the grass, that's my opinion, but you can grow grass. You may not grow it after you parked on it for 20 years and compacted it down to concrete, but we're not asking tenants to do that. We're asking the landlord if he wants to rent the house out, just like we do a business and any other apartment complex. When you get a certificate of occupancy, you got to have landscaping. I don't know why we would require them to get by with not requiring minimum landscaping, which is grass. And they've allowed somebody to park on it, and they're going to take more trouble. That's fine. As far as grass not growing, it's hard in some places to get it grow 100%, but I was just looking at a picture in Southern Living the other day of, what's that place called, the Oaks in Louisiana?
Yeah.
Big old gigantic oak, and guess what's under it? Green grass. Certain type grass, certain type effort, but yeah, it can be grown. Does require more fertilizer, more water, but at the same time, we require all commercial properties to put in landscaping now and irrigation. So I don't think it's too much to ask the landlord to keep grass on the property.
You saying dead grass must be replaced and taking that out, or?
No, I'm saying leave that all in there, that they can and should be required to put grass in and keep it growing. The reason we changed that irrigation thing in our landscaping not too long ago is, without mentioning names, we did have some businesses move in, do their landscaping, put the stuff in, and it died 6 months later, or part of it did, and we couldn't make them replace it. The same thing on some of that stuff that's in the building code. Yeah, we can have a building code and put stuff in there, but there's no way for us to come back later and make them, because they already got they moved in, they got a certificate of, as far as the siding, I'd have to go back and look at the number 12 or the 1114 changes. I don't think we changed anything on that, so as far as I know, the one that was in 1212, this was just added to that. As far as the boats, I think it says right now you can't park the boats in the front.
Can you scroll down to 17? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and they shall not be parked on the front, which if somebody's camping and they want to go take their camper home and wash it, repair it, get it ready, or the same thing for a boat, I think they should be able to bring it home for a while and do some stuff to it, repair it, whatever they want to do, and then move it. If they're going to store it there or park it there, then no. But they still should be allowed to bring it. And as far as parking it on the street, again, it gets into that safety thing. If they're on a straight road and they want to park it there in the road while they unload or load, or somebody comes into town to pick them up to go camping or whatever, and they're parking in front of the house while they're loading up, or they come back and they're coming in Friday and they're leaving Monday to go on vacation, then fine. That's why I was saying give them so much time for that. As far as the no more than one family, that's but there are requirements. HUD has requirements. Most rental property places do have requirements. We're not asking, but what we're asking here is for the landlord to be the one to make sure he understands, or her, that if I buy this house, or if I own this house, if I rent this house out, I'm limited as to how many people can be in this home, so that we don't have some of the problems that we have, maybe fire related or whatever. Somebody else had told me that some places do it 2 plus 1, 2 for every bedroom plus 1. So if you have a 3-bedroom, it'd be 9 plus 1, it'd be 10. If you have a 4-bedroom, it'd be 8. Did I do that right? No. If you have a 3-bedroom, it'd be 6 plus 1, it'd be 7. If you had a 4-bedroom, it'd be 8 plus 1, it'd be 9. And if you have a 5-bedroom, it'd be 11.
What problems have you had?
Huh?
What problems have you had with occupancy?
I've just heard a lot of comments from people about, about the homes with all the cars in there, and some of them are rental homes and that kind of stuff too. And I think, as Kathy mentioned before too, usually apartments have limits because of fire codes and all kind of stuff like that. If we want to change that to something, when I put the thing in there about whatever the original number was it 8? I can't remember.
Yeah.
I just chose a number between 6 and 16. So that, I think, can be amended. And I think some of this stuff is the Supreme Court with upheld definition of what a family is and all that kind of stuff. And as far as the utilities, I think the reason we put that in there, yes, we're gonna do one on the residential property, but this is the one that's telling the landlord, you're responsible too for making sure that house has adequate utilities, water, sewer, and electricity. So that we don't get into some of the same problems with, the tenant may have cut the thing off, but we can go back to the landlord now and make sure they know. And we can also make them clean up the mess. And I asked Bob about that too, and he said he felt like we should leave it in there even though it's under the residential thing. This also gives us an ability to go back to the landlord, the owner of the property, and kind of address it with them as well.
If I may, concerning the landlord, do we have a good reference for each property on who the landlord is? Because I think it is unfair that we ticket the renter as opposed to ticketing the landlord.
Well, some stuff like the grass, that's more likely the tenant's responsibility. Picking up the trash can and taking it back.
And I
is probably
think
that.
the landlord needs to have a discussion with the tenant. I think it should, again, fall back to the company, to the landlord, to be ticketed if we're going to ticket anyone, and let the landlord settle it up with the tenant to make them understand, okay, this was part of your agreement, this was part of your lease, and therefore you're in violation of that. Or, gee, we'll give you a little bit of break on the rent if you would take care of the grass. Otherwise, I'm going to have to get a service in and take care of that. So I'm just wondering, because I know the City of Columbia made it a requirement that if you had an out-of-state property owner, they had to have someone local that would be responsible, that could be a point of contact
Ours
pertaining to
has something similar to that. I'm not exactly sure.
But I mean, we have the information for the properties that have registered. I mean, we normally get the check from the landlord, not the, the person who's renting.
good.
But again, we find properties every day that haven't been registered yet, and we go
Well,
track
and-
them down.
And let me address that. Properties that have not registered. Look, I think if you were to charge them $50, $100,
We have no penalty, we just charge.
$200, whether you do that or not, that's not going to stop them from what they're actually possibly trying to do. What they're trying to do is avoid the 4% to 6% tax rate. That's what they're trying to do. So therefore, we're literally talking thousands of dollars versus a few $100. They might, roll the dice pertaining to not getting caught on a $100 or $200 fee rather than pay it and think that the town of Irmo is going to notify Lexington or Richland County that, hey, this is a rental property. Do we do that, by the way?
But to answer your question, yes, when we get the paperwork filled out and they do register, we do ask for a local representative and phone number.
That's good.
It's a
That's,
registration form.
that's good. Okay. But I'm even thinking that instead of $100 or $200, if you don't register, you should get a $1,087 fine. Now, this is an aside, but Eric, is there something we can do about having to charge on an abatement $1,087? Isn't there anything we can do so we don't have to charge a ridiculous fee? I think we'll all agree that's a ridiculous fee. But the state puts that on us, that is.
Well, our fine is a maximum of $500. The other $587 is state, but no. And if it's, even the judge drops it to $200, it's probably $500 by the time they add the
Again,
state
for a
fees.
parking.
But the judge has that option, and I don't think, Bob, have we ever charged anybody $1,087 for?
Knowledge, you've been to court more than I have. I don't think he's ever charged anybody the max, except for the recent sewer discharges. He has gotten
Understood, but for a parking issue, that's crazy. What happened to $25? $15?
Still $25 for parking, isn't it?
Yeah, if they write on the parking ticket.
But I mean, the judge can, if that were to go to court, the judge can do a $25 fine plus court costs, which still would turn out to be 50 or
Well,
whatever.
but
it may be.
I think folks would certainly understand a little bit better the intentions of this council if the fines were such that it's not going to kill someone or cause someone a lot of stress because they're facing that
Well,
$1,087.
One thing we could
maximum.
do, which is we've disagreed to do it in years past, was when we give that abatement notice, we don't have to put anything on there. We don't have to put a fine. They write that on there, that the fine is $1,000, because that's the maximum with court fees. You know, they could put on there, it's a minimum of $25 to $500 plus court costs. But you're almost being deceitful to the public.
Yeah.
They go, oh, this is $500, I ain't worried about that, or $25 or whatever. Then they go to court, and the judge goes, oh, it's $500 plus, it's $1,087 by the time you get up there to pay. And then they go, what?
Well, there's no remedy. We have no remedy as a council, as a town,
of the state.
because of the state.
Well,
Well, that stinks.
the only thing we can do is go back to what we talked about before, is doing municipal fines.
Yeah.
But then you get into, they can also throw them away, and there's nothing we can do.
Yeah, and I mean, that's
So it's either use the state ticket and do a maximum $500 plus court cost. But again, most people, by the time they get the thing and look at it and figure out this and that and other, and probably the $1,000 has something to do with it too. They go, oh, I'm gonna go cut my grass. And they comply and they throw the thing away, and they don't get a ticket 10 days later.
I don't know. I think if it's $50, $100, they're still going to cut their grass.
This needs to be rewritten. It needs to agree with all the other ordinances we have, and not just the 8 inches. What Mr. Hall said, the thing about occupancy, we ought to put down the HUD guideline, which is, and he said what it was. I mean, it's online. I've seen it.
So what is the HUD guideline?
It's the bedrooms.
So what you'd be saying though is now we got to, or tell the landlord, he's got to go measure his house, figure all this stuff up, and we have no way of.
He knows.
We don't need to be involved in their bedroom, how many people living in the house.
No, but if we
think it's
are,
simple just
we
to
ought to
say-
go by a guideline that is
Right.
legitimate, and it is. I don't care what the Supreme Court says. HUD, and it's not a requirement, it is a guide.
Right.
And I think it's good. This is silly. This is none of our business who's living it. Okay, an example would be, let's say you had 3 grown children, or 2, however, 3 grown children. All 3 of them have marital problems, and they all have 2 children. And they all come back to mom and daddy until the marital problems are solved. And it takes a while. They may be there a couple of years, This is not our business. This is a family having problems, but if you do it the HUD way, it's acceptable.
What is the HUD way?
He told you. I can't quote him.
No, that was another, or that wasn't the HUD way. HUD way has the 5 people, or the.
No, they've
10
got
people.
2 people for bedrooms if it's 170 square feet and all that. The one I read did.
Yeah.
I think it's more logical than this. Some of this is none of our business.
Well, it isn't until they come and get a business license to run a property in town. Are we saying it's any of our business to tell Dula to paint his building?
I didn't tell Dula anything,
Well, we did. We passed an ordinance.
but we did, yes.
Or is it our business to tell a dilapidated home that they
Did
can
Dula
do this?
paint it?
No.
It don't look painted to me.
But somebody from this council sat up here and told them to paint the building and things would go away. All I'm saying is.
Did he do it?
It was our business.
Did he
when
paint
we
it?
addressed those other issues.
Well, I don't.
These are rental homes. These are not
These are
residential
rental
homes.
but they're
These are rental homes.
residential as well. It is a business, whatever, but it's
We
zoned
tell a hotel
residential.
what kind of occupancy and
Well,
what kind of parking and
I
what
don't
kind of
think we
this.
can tell
Well,
people.
you're mixing commercial and residential. We're on residential right now.
It's residential.
Yeah,
This is
well, he's
rental
a
property
commercial
became
venture and a
commercial
residential-
business when they applied for a license.
I don't think it's our place to say, no, you don't, now, if you got 9 children, you have to kill off one of them, because can't be.
No, they just don't, landlord just don't let them move in.
I'm
It's
ju-
not, he just says, I can't rent this.
So if you
house."
got more than 9 kids, you can't
Wait,
move to
no.
Irmo.
No, he can't move in that home.
I have a,
They can buy a
You
home.
can't move to Irmo in that home.
They can buy a home,
it
yeah,
needs to
they
be
just can't
rewritten.
rent that.
Now, do any of us want to do it and defer the thing and make better sense than it does now? Who wants to do it?
You can't. Anybody can. I mean, that's what you gotta do. Somebody's gotta do it. You either gotta do it or vote for
Well, it
it
needs
or
to be
whatever.
done.
Well, here, I agree with nothing on here except for 21, all right? So I'm making a motion that we strike 9, 10, 16, 17, and 20, and just have 21. Leave it as it is, the current code, and just have 21. That's the only thing that I agree with enough to vote for.
So your motion is,
Strike 9, 10, 16, 17, 20 on your amendment, and then leave 21 and have that be the
what about
ordinance.
20?
What's
21.
wrong with the grass height?
I don't care about the grass site, but I'm just saying, start over and let's think about it. Because we already have the grass site in our ordinance.
I agree, we need to.
Well, all this stuff is in there. All this stuff is.
That's what I'm
already
saying is, that's what I'm saying.
But this is
Leave it
just
alone.
rewording of it.
Leave it alone the way it is. Strike 9 on your ordinance that you have in front of us. Strike
You got 9,
16,
10,
1804.
Now, are you
Strike
saying
9.
strike, Councilman? Are you saying strike it, get it out of there, or
I'm
are you
saying,
saying
well,
leave it alone?
9 is already in there, okay?
So leave it alone.
Leave this 9
Gotcha.
out. So I'm saying strike 9, 10, 16, 17, and 20. And the only one that I agree with to leave in is 21, which is the sewer thing, okay?
We could leave the grass because
Well, okay,
everybody's got 8. I'm just saying,
all right.
Well, it already says 8.
the driveway, well,
Well, before we flog this horse to death, why don't we just postpone this or defer this and work on it?
Well,
Who's gonna work on it?
we are.
I'll work on it.
Okay.
I'll work on it too.
Well, I just put a motion out there to strike,
Right, is there a second?
to strike those, and I'll leave in grass, so you wanna leave 10 in there? So strike everything but,
But,
that's fine.
I mean, we're working on it right now, so why don't we just work on it now?
It's gotta be
Because
reworded.
this should have been done before presenting it to council for a vote on this.
No, it shouldn't.
And-
That's why we're meeting, is we
Well,
work on it
you
while
know
we're
what?
meeting.
No, it isn't. No,
Yeah.
this is not the place for this.
This,
We
there's
shoulda
too
had it.
many of us to rewrite it with the right grammar.
Exactly. We're doing this from the seat of our pants, and we're gonna screw it up, I feel. But I'm willing to strike, I'm gonna leave 10 alone, Ms. Condon.
Thank you.
So
So 9,
9,
16, 17, 20.
16, 17, and 20.
And, okay, for example, parking spaces, that's in the zoning.
Exactly. It's already in there. We don't need
It's
to be
already
worried
in there.
about that.
Why are we doing it again? You have 4 vehicles,
Because if you
all of
read the
this ought to
current
agree.
thing.
But this is concerning rental properties, right?
Right.
Zoning, it's residential.
Yeah, and
You have
rental.
4. It doesn't matter whether it's rented
Now,
or.
even if your driveway can hold more than 4?
Go ahead.
Yeah, if you own a home
Yeah.
that has,
It says
for
4.
6 cars, you can park 6 there,
That's not what this
in a
is.
residential.
Zoning says 4.
Zoning says 4.
It
In the
does.
front.
It
yard.
does.
Even if
No,
your
I don't think
driveway
it
can
says
hold
4 in
6?
front, yeah. Well, again,
just-
we're debating this again, and this is where we need to be doing it in
We-
a
And
workshop
I know,
or
we need to
somewhere.
write it to agree with
Exactly.
everything else we've done. So if we're
That's why
ready
it's
to make this
controversial, 'cause it's here, there,
residential
everywhere.
and rental, that it'll work.
Look, go ahead. We have
We have a motion on the
we have a
floor.
motion on the floor.
Is there a second? All right, that motion dies for lack of second. Now what?
I'll make a motion.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
That we defer this until the second meeting in June.
Okay.
Why?
Okay.
He's going on vacation, I think.
I'm always on vacation, no. June.
And then we rewrite it?
and we rewrite it.
Okay.
And if it gets done sooner, we can present it to the next the council meeting after it's done, and we consult with Eric to be sure we're not stepping on anybody's toes that will come back and bite us. I mean, this ordinance has been on the book since 2005 and hasn't been touched.
No, this one was put on in
I mean,
12.
the original rental ordinance.
Yes.
We didn't have one in 12.
2012.
Oh,
Yeah.
Part of it was revisited in 2012.
No, we did the original
Whole
ordinance
thing.
in 2012. We amended it in 14. We didn't have one before then. We didn't have one at all before then.
The code book, it says 2005.
Well, that is not when something was done. That was when they codified everything at one time and
Oh, yeah.
put it all in the
Okay.
book at one time. Back, I guess, before
There
then.
might
We didn't
even-
have a
yeah.
book. I don't know.
But there might even be a way to make it one. Right? Okay, I second that.
Well,
So what date?
Second meeting in June.
All right, the
I
second.
couldn't tell you the date to say.
That's fine.
So,
So there's a motion to defer until the second meeting in June. Now,
2 months.
if we say the second meeting in June, technically we can't put it on before, so we just have to wait till then.
Huh?
What?
That's correct, you can't defer, you can only defer, if you defer to a specific date.
Date, then you gotta wait till that date.
Okay.
Now,
So
you can
we-
also motion to take
We
it
can
off the
cons-
table, but that's a different issue altogether.
can we discuss it?
You can put it on
That
for
is- that's the
discussion.
section. But if you are deferring to a date certain in the future, according to Robert's rules, you are deferring to that moment.
Yeah, we can't take it off. Now, you can put it on as a discussion before that meeting and just discuss it and make sure everybody's,
All right.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. Discuss it as we progress, and then when we present it, it's done.
okay.
And I want that, did Matt Hall leave? I want those notes.
All right, so there's a motion to defer until the second meeting in June. And did you second it?
Second it? Mhm.
Any discussion? My suggestion would be when you get, I don't want to say one section done at a time, or two or three, to send that out to council in email so that
Yeah, that would make sense.
people can respond to
be
it and
less
so
time.
forth.
Yep.
And then you can amend it until that day or until the
Yep.
discussion meeting. Any more discussion? All in favor then of deferring it till the second meeting in June this year, 2018, do so with show of hands.
I'm opposed.
Oh, I'm sorry.
To June?
Yeah, I'd like to get it done sooner.
I didn't say that. He said that. Get mad at him.
I'm not mad at anyone. I disagree with the date, that's all.
I just wanted to agree with all the other existing laws we have,
Yeah.
ordinances.
Yeah, needs more work.
Next is second reading of ordinance 1805. This is the one with appliances. Is there a motion for approval?
I so move.
And a second.
I'll second it.
And this is the one where we are just adding the word appliances.
I think we ought to put broken or,
Yeah, I
Or
mean, we can
trashed.
amend that to,
because he's right about the pool.
But it's not going to correct our problem because the gentleman that created this mess has working appliances in his backyard because he fixes them, leaves them out there until it's time to move them out off the property.
If they're not plugged in, how are you gonna know whether they're working or not?
So we're writing ordinances for one particular instance.
well, when we passed this thing,
I mean,
remember,
that's what we're doing, right?
No.
yeah,
Okay.
when we passed this thing, we came up with all that list of stuff, whatever was in there, the current code. And we said at that time, as other stuff came to our attention, then we would add those things at that time.
Because Rawls Creek has had some appliances in it.
Sure has.
Now, we could,
Could you say not work, non-work,
can you say white appliances? Because that, isn't that the term of those things?
white appliance?
White goods, yeah. When they talk about stoves and dishwashers and ovens and all that, there's
What's the word?
White
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 goods.
goods.
white goods.
You know, white sale when you,
Oh, Okay.
Would that
Women
be-
understand that.
Is that better?
I don't know that that addresses the issue, but, I mean, if it's, I'd have to look at what the definition of white goods is, but, I mean, I don't know what it is. I don't know if necessarily everybody else is gonna know what it is. I am a baby, so there's that.
Count your lucky stars.
So let's keep it appliances, but what about
You could put excluding,
hooked up, right? Hooked up.
excluding outdoor grills, I don't know, would,
See, that was,
Well, then you're gonna have outdoor
Yeah.
grills show up in Rawls Creek.
But I've seen appliances on the side of the road.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I just say, I want to outlaw that. That's terrible. But
I
well,
mean, how
those
they
are
gonna, wait a
supposed to be
minute.
picked up, so they're,
Yeah, they'll be picked up. I mean, how you gonna put them out there?
sooner or later, I've seen them out there for several weeks.
Well, I mean, that's Tyler's problem. He ain't picking them
I'm
up.
getting ready to put
They
a
haven't been
treadmill out
called,
there.
they don't pick them up.
Okay, so what's the answer on appliances? Inoperable. Broke.
No, don't say broken, just say inoperable.
Inoperable.
Because that means
okay.
it's not plugged in and it's being used for its
Okay.
purpose.
Inoperable? No? Does that take,
It can work. Inoperable to me means that it is incapable of operation.
You don't wanna look at somebody's backyard and see them appliances in the backyard.
the situation that we're talking
We know
about
what
though,
we're talking about. The problem is putting it into language.
Oh, it's your job. I mean, you tell us how to say it.
if,
I didn't realize on top of being an attorney, I was.
well, let me ask you this. If that particular property is working on them, then that would, in my mind, mean they're not working.
Oh, yeah, they're not working, but I mean, again, yes, there will be some of them are not working. But how do you know?
Because they're,
They're not presently working. Are
'cause they're
they,
working on it.
you know, I mean, but how do you know? You don't know until you run a drop cord to them if they're inoperable, right? So I don't know, is that oven inoperable or not? I'll have to run my drop cord to see. Is all 50 of them? I don't know. Yeah, I mean, it works, it addresses an issue. It's just, how do you prove the inoperability of something from a proof standpoint
Right.
of court?
Plus, you ain't going on my property to plug it in, so how you gonna?
Exactly. I have an unplugged refrigerator in my garage that I don't use at all.
Yeah, but that's not in your backyard.
No, it's not, but I'm just saying, it's not inoperable. If you plugged it in, it would be operable. I just never plug it in.
Door open.
I have two refrigerators plugged in.
Inoperable and disconnected? Inoperable and
We're trying to
disconnected?
we're trying to fix this problem where this person has a bunch of junk in his backyard, what we call junk. It may be appliances that work, maybe he's working on them.
We don't know.
Maybe he's fixing, maybe they don't work, and he's using for parts. But we're trying to fix that, so they don't do that.
That certainly drives down property value.
Yeah, but again,
Well, and this individual also has
Okay.
a business, so they're,
So what's the word? What's the adjective? Whatever.
you could say, I don't know, Eric,
he's got a business on a residential property?
no, he's got a business at another location where he
Right.
sells appliances.
Okay.
Picks these up and works on them in his backyard and then takes them to the business to sell them because evidently that building isn't big enough to work on them and sell them.
The
Okay,
other
so,
day,
so
I-
Eric, fix it and tell us how to write it, and let's move on.
Well, technically, that's what we're elected to do is write them.
But appliances is not gonna cut it, because like Mr. Hall said, a number of appliances in the backyard doesn't necessarily mean it's junk or it's not operable. He could have a backyard pool with a bunch of refrigerators around it or something for
But
beer.
and those grills,
Yeah,
grills
grills
are
and
not
stuff, right.
cheap.
How about if you instead, if you just did a quantity number instead? Just said, I mean, because then you address the guy who wants to have the grill and the refrigerator and the backyard kitchen. So the number could be 1, could be 2, could be 3, but then it would be a number, a set number instead of 50.
Does this guy have 50 in the backyard?
At one time.
What does he have in his back? Is there more than 10? I don't know, I haven't seen the property.
I drove there last
very-
week, and
Okay,
there
how
was
many's
a
got
truck
that?
in the backyard, loading or unloading. I was called by a neighbor behind this property, not the lady that lived next door. And nobody was home when I got there. So I didn't know if they were taking them out or putting them in.
How many did he
How
have?
many did you
There
see?
were 3 in the truck, in a big
How many seen in
panel
the
truck.
backyard?
Beg pardon?
How many was in the backyard?
They were putting them in the storage building
Oh,
Now,
or taking them
see,
out of the storage building.
Now, that's a different issue. I mean, it's not in the backyard.
Right.
That's
But
what we're
what's
talking about in the
happened is-
backyard,
is
right?
What happened is from the neighbor next door, after she started complaining about it, they moved them all somewhere else. Because supposedly he had about 15 or 16 in his backyard
and now we think they might
in
come.
various stage of construction, reconstruction,
But now
whatever.
they're in this shed?
Well, I don't know if they were in the shed or going into the shed. And he takes them out when he works on them because he hasn't got enough room inside it, I guess. I don't know. It just,
And no more than 3 appliances, right?
well, you
Three
might
s-
better say 4.
Okay, and no,
There's some of these outdoor kitchens, I mean, you
Following
watch The
trash.
Price is Right, these $8,000 kitchens, they've got,
no more than 4 appliances, okay. How's that? I make,
I'd say 3,
oh,
but then,
Go with 4. Let's
Go with
try
4.
4 right now and see.
nice round number.
yeah,
so you want to amend it?
I want to amend it to 4, no more than 4 appliances.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
So it will say following trash, not more than 4.
4 appliances.
Okay.
I think that's reasonable. Isn't that reasonable?
This is a start, we'll see.
I'm just a little hesitant because I'm trying to understand legally what he can be able to, bring to court and say,
Can you prosecute that, Eric?
Yeah, if I have a picture with 5 appliances. It's, I mean, I know attorneys get a bad rap, but we do still remember our numbers when we make it.
All right, any more discussion on not more than 4? Seeing none, all in favor of not more than 4, do so with show of hands. And I'm gonna oppose that.
You're going to oppose not more than 4?
Yeah, I think
He
we
wants
should
it
do
3.
Okay, just do that one.
Now, as amended, 1805, all in favor.
So is that gonna accomplish what we're trying to do?
Yeah, I think so.
You got 4, you can have 4 dishwashers or 4 washing machines in
In
the
the
back of
yard?
this?
Not
Yeah, in the back of the yard.
Yeah, I'm talking, it would be, yeah.
I
If
mean-
you had a pool or a
No, not the guy
No,
that's
he can still
legitimately with a
have
pool.
4. He can be working on 4, or somebody can have a barbecue grill, I'm gonna call it a built-in refrigerator around the pool, whatever you got, all that fancy stuff. And he could still be working on 2 appliances. Kind of, I guess, that'd be right, something. He could have 2 junkers over here,
Yep,
whatever. And he can leave them, or she, or whoever.
that's right.
I think that's reasonable.
Okay,
Is this accomplishing what we're trying to do? We're trying to get that out of, I guess what we're trying to do is get the guy to put it in the shed, right?
or work on it at his business, not work on
Get
it
it to put it in the
backyard.
shed. You can't tell him where to work on it at.
There's probably more than one that has this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So put it in the shed. If he puts it in the shed, he's fine.
Well, he puts them in the shed, but he
So
brings
he's
them out of the
fine.
shed to work on them. That's how he
But he's
got no room.
fine though,
Yeah,
right?
but I think if you had 4 or 3 or.
Yeah, he can
I
work on
think-
them in his yard and
And I
then
don't think
get 'em fixed and haul 'em.
as big of a nuisance to most people in that respect.
If
Okay.
it's behind his house and can't be seen from the street,
but it can be seen
But you
from the
can see
neighbors.
it from the
You
street.
see it from neighbors though.
well,
you can see
put
it
a
from some
blind
parts
up
of the
on the window.
They even put up a fence.
They put a fence up.
Okay, fence.
I mean, they did.
Spent a lot
Yeah.
of
The,
money.
the next door neighbor did.
Oh, yeah.
Still can see it.
But the people that live behind him, they got a panoramic view.
Yeah.
All right.
So all in favor then of 1805 as amended, do so with show of hands. Next is new business 1806. This is the one from the floodplain people. Wanting us to make a change in our wording. Is there a motion for first reading of 1806?
I'll make a motion.
A second.
Any discussion? And this is just something we got to do for them to make them happy. All in favor then of 1806, do so with show of hands. Next is first reading of 1807. This is the one that has to do with the sewage thing. And is there a motion for approval?
I so move.
And a second.
I'll second it.
Councilman Waits?
Well, after all the illicit discharges that have been found by our Public Works Director, we had a meeting last week with all the utilities. And one of the persons there was the stormwater management person. I forget what her title is, but she's over stormwater drainage in the whole county, Richland, Lexington. And she suggested the wording based on national standards for this ordinance. And we showed her what Bob and I had already worked on, and she said, this is good. But what happens is people buy a house, and the house has to be certified to have electric, water, and sewer. But as soon as you take occupancy, there's no law in the state of South Carolina that says you have to keep it all connected. And if an illicit discharge occurs and we don't catch it and the EPA catches it, then the town of Irmo is subject to a $3 million fine or thereabouts. And our WIT has found houses that have been discharging for over a year. We had a rental house where the owner hadn't been in the house in 5 years and was appalled at what she found. But she paid the back charges to connect the sewer back up for this person. This was running in the streets, along the side of the streets, where kids are walking and running around and playing. And imagine your child with a cut or a scrape falls down into this, which said many of them that he found had some E. coli present, and that's nothing to play with. So we asked the utilities, if you turn off their sewer, plug their sewer, is there some way you can notify the town or also notify the water provider if it is someone different than your company? Because Richland County service is part of us with sewer. City of Columbia service is part of us with sewer. And Carolina, which is part of Utilities, Inc., they supply sewer. We get water from two places, Utilities, Inc., or Carolina, and City of Columbia. And the City of Columbia's, our legals told us that we can't cut the water off if they're paying their water bill, even though we cut their sewer off. And I just find that kind of strange that if the sewer's off and people are opening it up, and they've been opening the clean-out valve, even disconnecting pipes to continue having sewer service. If you would go to one of the court proceedings, I did go when Whit first presented to the judge some of the situations he had found, and there was a yard where the family had been putting down 4x8 sheets of plywood in the backyard so the children could go out and play.
Good Lord.
And when the Judge Adams heard the case, she gave the man, I think, 15 days to be sure and get it done, and it hasn't been done yet, cleaned up yet. Children were taken from the home, and they're not people that can't take care of this. They were not renters, they own the home. and they weren't behind on anything. They just decided to cut it off. And if the EPA would come in, they would probably make them grade that rear lot down 4 or 5 feet to clean out what was there and then refill it. And if you live next door, you don't know what you've been getting, because a lot of neighbors, we noticed an odor, but we didn't want to say anything. That's like the people that had the gas leaks in their houses and didn't know where it was coming from, and one night somebody lit a match in the wrong place and the whole neighborhood blew up. So this is hopefully to protect the neighborhood and protect the children walking the streets that in the summertime that might be walking into this. And like I said, the lady, the stormwater management person for the 2 counties said this is in compliance with what they recommend. So that's my reason for presenting this, because like I said, there's no law that says you have to keep your sewer hooked up. The state has never passed anything like that. And they're leaving it up to municipalities to do it. And we were told that we were just the tip of the iceberg in the state of South Carolina finding this out, because it's everywhere in the state of South Carolina.
Well, this is a no-brainer.
Well, you'd think.
It's just the numbers wrong, I think, Bob.
The numbers.
They got 1806 on 1807 and 1807 on 1806, but that's just an error. We can change that. Go back to 1806, and that'll be the right ordinance. It'll just have the wrong number. Yeah.
Are we on 1807 now?
We're on 1807. Just this thing up here says 1806, but
Okay, got it. Okay.
this is really the right stuff.
Right.
Okay. Okay, I think we should vote on this.
Well, I think Mark, who seconded it?
Yeah,
Mark? Okay.
I'm good. I concur with Councilman Wiggs.
And even though this thing says the International Property Maintenance Code, there's a book out there, and it's about yay thick, and it covers everything, from building to renting. In fact, they have a rental ordinance in there.
Don't go confusing us.
Well, it is about that thick, and it covers everything you can ever imagine and not imagine. But it's probably overkill for our town. And in fact, a lot of that stuff that we did back in 1212 came out of that, where other towns have taken it and condensed it to, we only want this, this, this. And the same thing here. You can adopt the whole code, or you can just pull out sections and say, we want to adopt this section for our town and just only that section. Which is where you can go to get a lot of this wording. And y'all can get the stuff with the rental too and look at it. But I think they did that when they did the 1212 back years ago. Any other discussion? All in favor then of 1807, which is the sewer ordinance, I'll call it that for short, do so with show of hands. Approval to create a new police lieutenant position. Is there a motion for approval? Seeing none?
So moved.
Oh,
For discussion, yes. I think it should be discussed.
I thought y'all wanted to go home.
At 8:30? Nobody know what to do.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion. Kathy, Councilwoman.
I have been, thank you. I'm not changing either, just so the way. I have been to the police department at unannounced times, just walked in because I needed to ask something or whatever, and that is the hardest working man there. And it's usually cataloging all of the body camera things, all the stuff that has to be done to that, or he's doing the grant justifications and write-ups. And anyway, I understand the need for this, and I know why it is. And I hope we can afford it. And I hope we can find enough patrolmen that it doesn't affect that either. You think we can?
Yes, ma'am. I mean, the position that we're asking for would
Yes.
Most people do, and I do that. I come in early and go home late. And we have a lot of members of our staff that
That do that.
are devoting a lot of time to the operations of the police department, making sure we're staying up to speed with all the things that come our way. Through the years, there's been great increases in the demand for police and what they're capable of doing. As we talked about in the budget workshop, that since 2002, we've continued to add more personnel in our bottom levels to the tune of about 9 employees, and we haven't added any management to help support some of that. So that's what this position would do, is help give us added support in our management side. Obviously, we're looking at growth as well in the future.
But I know the chief, many times I've walked in, and the chief would be at a sheriff's meeting, or the chief would be at, he has untold amount of things to do. And I understand that. To keep up to date and to keep communication lines open, that's important. Anyway, I think you probably do need it.
And who said, oh, Councilman Walker.
Okay. Let's vote. Let's vote.
Any other discussion?
Well, after the budget meeting and looking back over the budget, we've got 4 patrol cars to buy this year too. And we've got 2 more items on the agenda, which, based on possible costs, could be close to $300,000.
We can't afford that.
And we are tapping into reserves this year on our budget. So unless we come up with some money from somewhere, I'd like to postpone the lieutenant's position for maybe next year to see how money comes in. Or, and this is a big or, because I don't like the idea of putting property taxes back into the town of Irmo. We pay Richland County enough and can't get them to do anything for us. They misplaced some of the money. That's why they haven't fixed the roads, or just now getting back to fixing roads. There was something on the Citizens of Irmo page that kind of got me, and I wanted to reply to it, but every time I reply to it, I get my hand slapped. The current council had nothing to do with the subdivisions that had roads that had to be paid for by this council or that town administrator. They were done by previous town administrator and previous council. Bob has a checklist, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that he goes through to be sure that we don't get stuck with a
Excuse me,
bill.
we're talking about police lieutenant, sir. Could we stay on subject?
I'm explaining why I'm not in favor of it right now, Mr.
Okay, well
Walker,
then,
if it's all right
you're not in
with you, sir.
favor of it. Let's vote
I
on
mean,
it.
if you can read
He's
your
got the floor.
communications, I've got the
I
floor.
mean, come on now, we're talking about.
Point of order.
police
Walker,
lieutenant.
he's
You're
got the
talking
floor.
about something totally different.
He's got the
Please,
floor.
let's stay on subject.
He is staying on subject.
The
He's talking about
subject is
expenses.
money right now. And I'm just explaining that money has been poured out this year, no fault of our town, that's here now. We have a new subdivision that's opening up soon on Irmo Drive. They put up a cash bond, and as soon as they get their roads finished, we're going to return their bond because they are a gated community and they're going to maintain their own roads. And as I said, Bob has a system where we will not get caught with our pants down again. So with all the budget constraints right now, that's the only reason I have an objection to it.
And let's see, who, oh, you want,
I also have an issue with the amount of money that we're spending. We keep dipping into the reserves and it's going to be gone. And again, our rating, if we ever had to borrow money, is going to be dependent on what we have in those reserves. So I am opposed to this position currently until, again, next year we can see exactly where we're at. We're spending way, way too much money.
That's true.
And I'll clarify, when y'all say next year, this budget that we're doing in this
Is next year.
position is kind of next year, because it's the, what is it, the 18-19?
July to June.
Yeah, the 18-19. Y'all are talking about the 19-20 budget.
Which is
maybe.
next year, we'll propose that budget.
Okay, okay, I see what you're saying. And another thing we can do too is, even if it, say if it doesn't pass tonight, we get, Bob, we'll get all our business license and local option sales tax revenue pretty much clarified by May something.
We've been collecting it all now, and then the dead time is October, November, December. January business license money starts coming in, and about now, at the end of April, we'll have all of our business license money for the businesses that were here last year.
Yeah.
We get the big chunk of change from the municipal association and also the
And that comes in when?
insurance. That's normally right around June 30th,
Okay.
the last thing we get.
So even though the revenue that's coming in right now and that local option sales tax and that municipal, that's really for the 17-18 budget. But we will know probably around May to June if we exceeded last year's anticipated revenue. I mean, I don't know if we had 3 million in there last year or 3.1, but we'll know by then, do we have 3.2 or 3.3 or 2.9?
We'll know about the middle of July, really.
Okay.
Like I say, come in real late in June.
So we'll have a better understanding then of how did we do, I'm gonna call it last year. Then we can anticipate, and that's a big word, that if we did 3.2 in business license this year, and we did more than we did last year, and we did more than on the other stuff, then we might be able to come August, September, come back and address it if we feel like we exceeded. And we can do a budget amendment at that time too. Even if we ain't got it in the budget, we can do a budget amendment.
That's correct.
So August, September, October, we could at that time look at it and say, hey, let's look at the revenue numbers and see. I have a problem, not with the position, but with,
Timing.
well, when you're paying for a reoccurring expense out of non-reoccurring revenue, that may catch us. Paying for one-time fees, so to speak, like police cars, out of that is a one-time thing, even though we know we
Yeah.
buy them every so many years. It's still, coming out of that savings account for that stuff. But doing a reoccurring out of that, to me, is not good. But I do think we ought to look at it again, probably in the August, September timeframe, because we'll have a better understanding of what came in, and we can compare it to were we over budget or we were under budget, and then we can look at it again and kind of guess from there that the same thing will probably happen in January of next year to April next year, that we'll get more revenue than we anticipated. Because if you look at the revenue close, we could probably squeeze out some money. But that's just changing numbers on a budget. We could say we're going to make this and that and the other and make it balanced, but the likelihood is that's not 100% accurate. So I would say, let's not do it now, but wait until then and look at it again, when we can kind of tell, do we have the revenue? Because we've got 300,000 coming out already for stuff that we may need to wait on that. Any more discussion?
Yeah, I got something. One of the things that we do as a council is provide a police department that's supposed to service the town and protect us and our citizens. If the police department comes to you and say, we need to buy a police car, we put it in our budget. We say, okay, we'll figure out how to get the money and do it. And I think they're not asking for anything unreasonable when they ask for 4 cars this year you need to replace. Is that what it is? Okay. Then I like to see them buy all Teslas or buy all Mustang convertibles
Teslas?
that are custom or something like that. But if they buy what they want to buy, they know they need it to protect us, and I'm for that. They also said to us, we need to add, we have what, 3 officers down? We're down 3 patrol officers? And Mr. Glassmeyer said he'd rather see us getting more patrol officers on the street than management. Well, I kind of agree with that, and I kind of don't agree with that. With every officer you have on the street, you do need to have some management to go along with it. These people have, the police department has come to us and say, hey, we'd like to add some more management, and that management is a lieutenant position, and we can find the money in the town to do that, because that's something that they say they need for us to protect us as citizens and to do their job more efficiently. We can back and forth and say, oh, we can wrangle this. We can wait until next budget year. We can wait until we see how much money we got coming in. Fine. And we can also put it in the budget this year. And that's what they asked us to do. So let's stop playing games and saying, oh, we're going to wait until we know we have the money to do it, and just get it done. That's our job, is to protect the citizens of the town and provide the police department with the revenue and the tools that they can do it with.
It's also our job to be fiscally responsible for the dollars we have. And you say find the money, but the money's not there unless we take it out of our reserve. And that's fine too, if council wants to do that. I just disagree with taking money out for an employee position, which is a recurring revenue or expense, out of money that is not reoccurring. We don't know that we'll have that reserve. So that's just a difference of opinion, but that's just where I stand. And I think we can wait, because it's not a no, it's a not now. And we can look at it again and see, do we have the revenue? You know, we can always spend money, but if we ain't got it, you got to come up with it. And you can say we can find it. No, you can't. You can't find it when the well is empty. You either go into your savings and take it out of there, or you raise fees. You got to raise property tax. You got to raise business license.
So you saying the town is broke?
I didn't say that. I said
You say we don't have the revenue coming in?
I think we don't have it right now. We're 300,000 short. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Right now.
And what do
300,000
we
short.
add? We added a whole bunch of new stuff in too, didn't we?
Excuse me?
We got it in.
The only thing new, we had position in the 4 cars, and that was 300,000.
Okay. So it was a $300,000 for the cars?
200 for the 180 for
200.
the car, 120 for the
Right.
position.
So maybe they don't do a car and they get a lieutenant? I mean, that's the kind of budgeting you do, right?
Or we can take everything out and say
Right.
we're stuck at, and take all 300,000 out.
Sure, that's an option, but
Yeah.
that's an option. But I mean, see, you can move stuff around. You can say, okay, we don't get 3 cars, we get 2 cars this year, and we add a lieutenant's position.
But
I mean, that's the options we have.
yeah, but then we're going to have a car with over 100,000 miles on it.
And then we're going to replace 5 next year,
Yeah.
or 6. So
Well,
it's just a vote. We vote yea or nay, and that's it, and move on, like you say. Any more discussion? All in favor then to approve the lieutenant's position, do so with show of hands. All opposed? And like I say, we can look at this again come September, October, and kind of get a better idea of, do we have the next is approval to create a communications coordinator position. Is there approval?
so move.
Motion for approval. Is second.
For discussion purposes.
Motion dies for a lack of second. Huh?
We can't afford it. At that,
Let's discuss it. You don't want to discuss it and say why you can't afford it?
well, no, I read the.
Okay. Well, look, the people out
Nope, we
here
didn't
haven't
get
read it.
Next item is E, approval to establish a non-emergency phone number of star 299. Is there a motion for approval?
So move.
Is there a second?
We can't afford it.
Motion dies
Talk
for,
about it.
motion dies for lack of second.
See, this is the kind of stuff that you need to talk about, and y'all don't want to do
Put
it.
it on
That's
there
okay.
as a discussion.
Put it on there as discussion.
I'm not gonna put anything on the discussion, it's on there now. You can
No,
talk about it.
no, put it on as a discussion and
No,
let's get
I'm
all
not
the-
gonna put it on the
Bob
discussion.
All right,
said-
we've
It's on there
voted.
right
We've
now.
We
moved
did,
on.
but Bob said
Okay.
he didn't even have all the figures.
We're not going to discuss it. We didn't.
Bob didn't have the figures, he didn't even know what we were talking about,
Hey, we're all out of order. We didn't.
okay?
Next item is presentation by citizens. This is where anyone who would like to address council on anything, regardless of whether it's on the agenda or not, may do so at this time. All we ask you give us your name and address for the record.
Brandy Clarkson, 318 Lord Howe. I just popped in tonight really to tell Barry happy birthday, but I wasn't going to speak until you guys denied the police department something that needed. Yes, you can create money. You can cut costs. You don't have to get a $38,000 porch. There's many places that y'all have voted to spend money frivolously. Instead of doing that, you could have funded our police department. I love Barry's idea about the car. One of the police officers, such as a code enforcement officer, could drive the car that needs to be replaced. They're not going on a high-speed chase. They're going around doing y'all's dirty work. It's insane to me y'all just denied that. It's insane to me Barry's the only one that spoke up for it.
For the lieutenant?
Yeah, I don't care what they need, you give it to them. Cut a car if you need to. I mean, I had a boss who had an old Volvo. He called it the Irmo car. It won't go fast, it won't go far. It's just the Irmo car. We're not talking about, we don't live in LA. It's Irmo. They can get by with one car, but what if they need that lieutenant more than they need a car? Y'all didn't even discuss Barry's idea. Is it because it's from Barry? Because it's a good idea, but none of you guys will even entertain his ideas. I'm sure the chief would rather have a lieutenant than a third car. Nobody even asked the police department. You've got a spokesperson sitting right here. It's sad. It's really sad.
Thank you.
Right.
Well, good evening again. Susan Pope, 581 Cornerstone Circle. I want to thank each one of you individually and collectively for serving the town of Irmo, all of you. It's just not easy, and I appreciate it. I'm just confused on what applies to landlords and renters versus homeowners. I'm sure I'm not the only one confused, so I'm just going to kind of ask a few questions. Is there a limit on the number of vehicles per home, or is there a limit on the number of people in the house? And is this just for renters and landlords, or does it apply to me as an owner? I personally agree with Mark that any fines and tickets should be given to the landlord, not the renter. I think the price of the parking fines are extreme. You were speaking about appliances in the backyard. So is it lawful to go in my backyard to see what's in it? I mean, is it lawful to go on my property and see what's in my backyard? The government overreach is getting pretty scary for me. And you say appliances, does that apply to toilets in the front yard or just washing machines in the backyard? Or barbecue grills, are we gonna specify? As far as the IPD request, they should have anything they request immediately. They're here to serve and protect all of us, and nothing is more important than that. I don't care about the grass or who has a washing machine in their backyard, but with all of the gunshots I've been hearing and all the fast police chases and the drugs and all of this stuff, IPD should have anything they request. If it's a dog, a weapon, a car, a lieutenant, whatever. Is there such a thing as reaching out to some of these big businesses to sponsor, raise money to help pay for the cars? I mean, I don't have a lot of money, but I would be glad to donate to the cause to help get them whatever they need. They are the priority in this town. Nothing else. Because no matter what we all do, the mayor, the whatever, IPD is our protection. And the grass and all of this other stuff is really irrelevant, because when somebody busts in your home or steals something or shoot, it's IPD that's putting their life, they're already putting their life on the line. They're not getting paid millions. So they should have anything they request right away. And the grass thing, I lived in Southern California for 25 years. And Southern California is extremely environmental, tree hugger kind of, out there. And I had to get used to that because I grew up in Mobile, Alabama, where a lot of that stuff was just not in my psyche. But one of the things that they really, really pushed on us was don't waste water. There's a water shortage. Don't waste water. Southern California has fires all the time. And can you please just don't have grass? You don't need grass. You're wasting our water, watering some grass. Can you just do a desert yard with some rocks or cactus? And I think there needs to be some sort of balance with that. I'm confused about the love for grass here in Irmo to the point where you're going to tell someone to spend so much money on fertilizer. I didn't spend a lot of money to make my grass pretty. It's still ugly. And I'm not spending no more money to make it look pretty. So is this grass beautification for landlords and renters, or is it for me too as an owner? So I really need some clarification on who these rules apply to. And I really don't understand the extreme concern with grass. It's going to chase a lot of people out of here. IPD, I hope you guys get what you want. You sure deserve it. Happy birthday, Barry.
Thank you.
George Glassmer, 100 Denbeck Road. I want to offer some rebuttal and additional insight as to the proposed lieutenant's position, and some facts would seem to be escaping a few people. This would be an additional officer that we would be putting on the department, and every time you put an additional officer in that department, you have to buy yet another car in addition to replacing and maintaining the ones that you have. So that's yet another vehicle, another set of equipment, another set of benefits, health insurance, retirement, et cetera, in addition to salary. And again, what some people don't seem to get, I'm very much pro law enforcement. I spent 9 years on the street as a uniformed sheriff's deputy in these counties. But again, my concern is let's make sure that the frontline officers are supported first. Let's make sure we've got all the patrol officers fully staffed before we go filling administrative management positions. And if you were to approve this position, it would suck up another officer from the bottom to fill in those higher rungs on the ladder and we're already 3 officers short. It would create a 4th officer short on the road. And I think that needs to be your priority. And I'm confident that management at the police department is doing everything they can to recruit and retain officers. It's very difficult in this environment for all the agencies in the state and the nation because it's just not an attractive position anymore. People don't want to go into law enforcement for a number of reasons. If you watch the news, you understand why. And I think the pay and benefit package here is certainly competitive, but there just aren't enough candidates out there. It's very competitive to get those, and they're doing everything they can to get those people and retain them. But the fact is, we're short now, and to approve this position would make a bad situation even worse on the street. And I think that needs to be your priority. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone?
Yeah, I'm Wade Deloach, 156 Finsbury Road. Just wanted to bring up two things. One, apparently with the funding that's been talked about here tonight and the needs that we have here in the police department, cars and everything, I think council really needs to look close to the future and figure out how we're going to raise funds. Things are changing. A lot of people moving into the area. And I think you guys need to maybe come up with some kind of plan to increase funding to the town, because it's not going to get lower, it's going to get higher, and the needs are going to grow. And we need to think about that for the future. If he needs a lieutenant in that department and we don't have funding, we need to figure out a way to do it. But we need to think further than that. Perhaps there's other things in the town that's going to need more money too. And if we don't get ready and think about ways to raise funds in the future, well, I don't know, we're going to be really upside down in debt. The other thing, I don't know who the gentleman was. They had a problem with appliances in the backyard. But I just wondered, did anybody actually go up to that man and talk to him a little bit? I mean, a privacy fence around his backyard, maybe something to suit his neighbor instead of coming up with a law. What about, if somebody comes up with something other else, not appliances, but, I do a lot of Christmas lights and stuff. If somebody says, oh, I don't like the way Mr. Deloach does Christmas light, he builds stuff year-round, and I see stuff in his backyard, you're going to build an ordinance for everybody in the town that you can't build Christmas stuff in your backyard? I mean, I'm just saying, talk to people first and maybe come up with solutions instead of just laws for everybody. I understand, if it's a burden on the neighbor, looking over and seeing an ugly mess, but maybe there's another way. Just talk to the man, put a privacy fence or something like that. I'm just saying, instead of coming up with laws first, let's talk to the people first and see if we can come up with a solution one-on-one instead of just trying to make a burden on the whole town. That's all I got.
Thank you. Anyone else? Let's see, nothing on the agenda for discussion or executive session. Next is adjournment. Is there a motion for adjournment?
Make a motion.
A second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And I can answer some of your questions, Wade, and Susan Pope, I can answer some of your questions if you want to